Hello, I'm delighted to be able to speak to you today about Support Through Court and what we've been doing as we've been going through the lockdown. We took the decision to move out of our units on the 20th of March, and the government announced the general lockdown on the 23rd. The teams were amazing, and the transition from court and office work to home working went very smoothly, and I'm very grateful to everybody involved. We haven't been idle over these past few months. We've been working very hard looking at how we get back into our courts, and also taking the time to review and do some projects which we might not have had time to do had we been doing our normal face-to-face client work. All the teams have been working hard. For instance, the fundraising team have been continuing their work in a different climate, but they're doing a good job. We've just had the figures in for the end of June, and they've met their target. Not only that, we had a £30,000 donation in on the 30th of June from a new trust, which was introduced to us by volunteers. I'm very grateful for that and for the funds that they've secured for the charity. Thank you so much. The fundraising committee are monitoring our fundraising efforts, and we are very aware that there are risks going forward. So we're maintaining a watching brief. But so far the impact hasn't been too bad. And I have to say, our funders have been amazing. You know, those of you who support us, your donations are coming in as normal. Many of you have increased your donations, and we are very grateful for that support. As a consequence of all of this, at the end of June, our reserves stood at 5.7 months, almost reaching the 6-month target that is in our reserves policy, and something that we weren't sure would happen given moving out of the offices, etc., at the end of March. Our service team have been very busy. They too have worked very hard over this last few months. Although some of them have been on furlough, we've taken advantage of the furlough scheme, and in fact, every team has been affected by furlough, and we have had almost everybody who could be on furlough has gone on it. And that's been very helpful because it brings in funds that we can use further down the line to support our reopening of units and our re-establishment of our work. I think one of the things I'd really like to say thank you about is the phone line. We launched it on the 9th of March. It was a soft launch. It wasn't meant to be anything more than just really one more unit. At the moment, it's doing the work of 3 units. Since we launched on the 9th of March, we've increased the number of phone lines. We've got over 100 volunteers working on duty rotas, and service managers acting as duty managers to the rotas. And at the end of June, we had reached 3,361 calls that we'd help people with. And I just am amazed at how we've transitioned from this small unit that we planned to this amazing outgoing unit that's currently reaching 61 calls a day that we're maintaining support for. And that has grown exponentially since March, so I expect it to continue to grow, and we have more lines ready to release should that happen. So we're in a good place to support our clients. The other thing that's come out of the COVID situation is that the court system, HMCTS, have actually increased the number of video and phone hearings, and they reached out to us to ask for our support. And Paul Bryson, our regional service manager, has worked with them. And since we launched that service in May, we've already had 105 contacts that we've dealt with. And again, that is pretty amazing. And I think that, you know, as CEO of a charity like ours, I'm very proud of my teams and what they're doing. Both of those services have grown beyond what we expected as a result of the impact of the pandemic. And at a time when we maybe would not be able to look out for any of our clients, to be there for our clients, we've actually managed to maintain services for 20% of the target numbers that we had. And that's amazing because we haven't got the units open. So that 20% comes out of the phone line, it comes out of the remote hearing support, and it comes out of monitoring and dealing with phone messages and emails coming into our individual units. The good news is that we're working towards coming back into our courts, and I'm really delighted to say that we expect Sheffield to reopen later this month. So that will be our first unit reopened, and I'm very excited at the prospect. We have used the furlough scheme, and it will support us, and I think that it's only sensible to do so. I think many of our teams have found that difficult, and one of the things that we have to guard against is the issue of what I've been calling lockdown fatigue. So we're working to maintain our relationships within the organisation, for our service managers and teams to maintain relationships with volunteers, and for us as a whole to try to keep the whole organisation ticking over till we get back to whatever our new normality is. It won't be the same, but we'll get there. I myself and some of the leadership team are on a number of external panels and committees, all of which are working to support the courts to return to some sense of normality. But it's clear from all of the things I go to, all of the people I speak to, that there are two really big concerns. One is that there are a number of people who are vulnerable and they're falling through the cracks at the moment. There isn't a service that's picking them up. And that seems to be a common theme, whichever service you're looking at. Our LIPS colleagues and the wider group within the LIPS networks are all saying the same thing. And that's a real concern. And that's one of the reasons why when we get back into our courts, our face-to-face work has to be quite a strong priority, because it's those that walk into the courts who are very vulnerable that we will need to support. And yet we are faced with a changed circumstance, which means we may not be able to see as many people, so we will have to do triage. So I'm hoping that we can work through that and things will improve. And the second thing that has been a constant theme in those panels and committees is the number of cases that are sitting in abeyance, that are not taking place, and the deluge that will hit the courts when they reopen. It's unfortunate that this is happening, and certainly when you look at housing, when you look at the stay of possessions and evictions that was extended to August, there is a huge concern there. I heard of one court that had 6,000 cases waiting. So we will be needed, we'll be needed more than ever, and we will need the support of our funders, we will need the support of our volunteers, and we will need the support of our workers, our fantastic staff teams, our business teams, our fundraising teams. We will need everybody to pull together to take us on to the next stage. And I think we've got to manage the process very carefully for at least the next 18 months before we get to a point where COVID isn't impacting us almost on a daily basis. So that's where we are at the moment. Work is going on. We are getting back into our courts. And although Sheffield is opening this month, others will follow in the next couple of months. And it's our firm hope that we'll all be back in our generally in our courts and our offices by October. But it's a case of watch this space and working with the courts to make that happen. I hope you enjoy the newsletter you've received. And I just want to thank you again for your continued dedication, commitment, support in every way to this charity. And wish you well. Stay safe, keep well. Thank you and goodbye.